Today's lesson is fat is bad. Is that a fact? Hello, everybody. I am Roger.
And my name is Helen.
And today we're talking about dieting or trying to keep your weight under control. And it all has to do with fat. And I think most people think fat is bad. But we're going to try to ask this question. Is that a fact? Is fat really that bad for us?
Yes, and we are also going to talk about nutritional facts because we often get advice from experts about what we should eat and should not eat to stay healthy. And oftentimes, these pieces of advice contradict each other. So a while ago, people were saying we should stay away from eggs because egg yolks were bad for us. They were high in cholesterol. And then later on, they were saying that eggs are actually good for us. So often we are left confused about what we should do to stay healthy. And this is one of those issues. It's about fat. Should we avoid it? Should we eat it? Is it really bad for us?
Yep, is fat good or is it bad? We'll try to answer that question in today's lesson. So let's get to it. Let's listen to the first paragraph and then we'll come back to discuss it.
Fat is bad. Is that a fact? Health experts have long been telling us that a low-fat diet is the key to good health. But these days, many doctors and nutritionists are proclaiming the health benefits of eating fat. So what are we to believe? Here are some common myths about fat.
大家好。第一部分我们看到片语 the key to 加名词或是动词 ing 指点点点的关键或是要诀，其中的 key 可表示达成某事或是解决问题的关键。举例来说 Loving yourself is the key to happiness 爱惜自己是获得快乐的关键，或是 Money is not the key to a happy life 金钱并非快乐人生的关键。接着我们看到单字 nutritionist这个字是名词，指营养学家，像是 The doctor advised Mary to see a nutritionist about her diet. 医生建议 Mary 向营养学家咨询一下饮食问题。另外补充一个相关名词 nutrition, N-U-T-R-I-T-I-O-N, nutrition 指营养或是营养物质。例如 The villagers were not getting enough nutrition and many of the people were very thin.村民们没有获得足够的营养，使得他们大部分人都非常瘦弱。再来我们看到动词 proclaim 指明确表示或是声明宣布。举例来说 The politician proclaimed victory after early vote counts showed that he had a substantial lead over his opponent. 这位政治家在初期计票显示他大幅领先对手之后便宣告胜利。或是Everyone in the arena applauded when the rock band proclaimed that a new album would be released soon. 这支摇滚乐团宣布很快会推出新专辑时，场馆里人人鼓掌喝彩。
So we're talking about fat, eating fat, and whether that is bad for us or good for us. And health experts, they say they have long been telling us that a low-fat diet is the key to good health. So health experts have been telling us for a long time that if you want to stay healthy, if you want good health, then you should keep a low-fat diet.
Yep, the key to something means the most important thing. If you don't have that thing, then you will fail. You will not be successful. We've probably all heard our parents and our teachers say, hard work is the key to success. If you don't work hard, you will not be successful. And here, of course, we've been told that a diet that is low in fat is the key to good health. If we have a diet that doesn't have a lot of fat, hey, we'll be nice and healthy and we won't be really big and fat.
That's right, but these days many doctors and nutritionists are proclaiming the health benefits of eating fat. In other words, more recently, these days, a lot of doctors and nutritionists, experts in nutrition, are proclaiming or they are stating publicly, telling the public that eating fat actually has health benefits.
Indeed. So, of course, if you go to university and you study nutrition, then you're studying all about vitamins and minerals and other nutrients that help us stay healthy. So, of course, if you go to the hospital, they may have a nutritionist there that you can go to talk to get some advice on your diet. And so we talk to doctors and we talk to nutritionists, and a lot of them proclaim the health benefits of eating fat. If you proclaim something, then you state this formally in public, and you are saying that this is the truth, and you want a lot of people to know about it.
Right, so these days doctors and nutritionists are saying actually eating fat is good for you. So what are we to believe?
Yep, what are we supposed to believe? Some people say fat is good, some people say it's not good. So, yeah, what are we supposed to believe? Who do we listen to? Well, here are some common myths about fat. So since fat is so controversial, we're going to talk about some ideas that people have, and those ideas are probably not true. That's what a myth is. It's a story from the past that nobody can prove is true, and usually it turns out not to be true. So, of course, some common myths about fat, as we're going to talk about in the following paragraphs. But, of course, the word myth also can refer to old stories from certain civilizations or countries, like Greek and Roman myths. They're great stories, they sound good, but they're probably not true.
Yes, and these days we can refer to common beliefs that aren't true as myths. One myth is that men can't cook. They're really clumsy in the kitchen, but that's a myth because most of the famous chefs in the world are men. So it's a myth that men can't cook or can't be in the kitchen without breaking something or ruining something.
Very good. So we're going to move on now and find out some things that we've been told about fat that are probably not true. So let's do that. Let's move into the next paragraph and then we'll listen.
All fat is bad. Not all fats are created equal, and some fats, known as unsaturated fats, are actually good for us. Found primarily in plant oils, which include corn, sunflower, and olive oil, as well as in avocados, nuts, seeds, tuna, and salmon, unsaturated fats help our bodies absorb vitamins. They also support cell growth and boost our immune system, so when experts recommend eating fats, they're likely referring to unsaturated fats.
第二部分我们看到单字 avocado， 这个字是名词，指酪梨。像是 Andy likes to add some diced avocado to the dish. Andy 喜欢在菜肴中加一些切丁的酪梨。再来我们看到动词 boost， 指提高、促进或是改善。像是 An aggressive ad campaign boosted sales. 积极的广告活动提升了业绩。或是Mike boosted his immune system with vitamin supplements. Mike 服用维他命补充品来增强免疫系统。再举一个例子 A visit from Lucille's grandchildren boosted her mood. Lucille 的孙子们来探访，让她心情变好了。
And welcome back. So we're talking about fat, and the first myth we're going to look at is the statement, all fat is bad, or the belief that no matter what kind of fat you eat, it's going to be bad for you. But that's actually a myth because it says here, not all fats are created equal, and some fats, known as unsaturated fats, are actually good for us.
Now be careful with this word fat. Notice in the title it says all fat is bad. Fat, this word, can be both non-count and countable. If you're talking about fat in general, then it's non-count. I have a lot of fat in my body. I need to go on a diet, for example. But if you get kind of scientific and you talk about the different formulas or the different chemical equations for different kinds of fats, then it is countable. So yes, not all fats, not all these kinds of fat are created equal. They're not all the same. And some fats, known as unsaturated fats, are actually good for us. So I've heard this before. When they break down fats, they talk about two different kinds of fats: unsaturated fats and saturated fats.
Yes, and what is the difference between unsaturated and saturated fat? Well, first of all, unsaturated fats are found primarily in plant oils, which include corn, sunflower, and olive oil, as well as in avocados, nuts, seeds, tuna, and salmon. So these foods, these common foods, are the sources of where you can find unsaturated fat. So when you want to eat good fat, you can turn to these foods.
Right. If you've ever studied chemistry before, you may have heard the term saturated. If you put some substance in water, for example, and you can't put any more in there, it won't mix anymore, then we say that that is saturated. It is full. If it's unsaturated, then it is not full. So I guess unsaturated fats are kind of diluted in a way, and they're actually good for us. And Helen just said, or just mentioned, the places that we can find them in plant oils that come from plants, for example, and those oils include corn oil, sunflower oil, and olive oil. And avocados, of course, are quite good, and they're used commonly in Mexican cooking.
Yes, avocados, they're delicious also, and of course nuts and seeds, and two particular types of fish, tuna and salmon. So tuna is a type of ocean fish that you often find in Japanese cuisine, in sushi and sashimi. You can eat it raw when it's fresh, and that's very good. And salmon is a fish that has pink meat, and it lives in the sea, but when it needs to reproduce, it swims up the river to produce its eggs. So we have these two types of fish that are particularly rich in unsaturated fats, so they are considered good foods to eat. And why is unsaturated fats good for us? It's because these fats help our bodies absorb vitamins.
And vitamins, of course, are nutrients that our bodies need. That's a good thing. They also support cell growth and boost our immune system. So when experts recommend eating fats, they're likely referring to unsaturated fats. So yes, indeed, they help our bodies absorb vitamins, but they also support cell growth. They help our body's cells grow, and they boost our immune system. What does boost mean, Helen?
To boost something means to support it, to lift it up, or to raise it. So when we eat these types of fats, unsaturated fats, these fats actually increase or help our immune system do its job. So, well, sometimes we might just be listening with one ear to what a nutritionist or a doctor is saying. So when they say, yeah, you should eat some fats, maybe we're thinking, I can eat bacon now. But no, they're likely they're talking about unsaturated fats, the good fats.
Exactly, and those things boost our immune system, which I believe in Chinese is the 免疫系统. And of course, doctors will specify what kinds of fats they're referring to, whether they're unsaturated fats or saturated fats. Just remember, unsaturated fats are the good ones. So here we've got the phrase to refer to. That just means that's the information that you are indicating. That's the information that you want someone else to pay attention to.
Right. For instance, if I say to someone, I really like that shirt over there, and there's more than one shirt to where I'm pointing, and the other person could say, which one are you referring to, the blue one or the yellow one?
Indeed, and of course when I worked in the mailroom back in university, I was referred to as the spider because I had very long arms that were very good for sorting mail very quickly. So that's what I was referred to as, the spider. Okay, let's wrap things up here in the second part of our lesson, and we'll move on now to the third part and talk about those nasty saturated fats.
The evil cousins of unsaturated fats are saturated fats and trans fats, both of which should be consumed in moderation or avoided completely. Beef, pork, and chicken fat, as well as butter, cheese, and cream are high in saturated fat. Processed and fast foods like hamburgers and pastries also tend to be high in unhealthy fats. While our bodies burn unsaturated fats easily, they store saturated and trans fats, turning them into body fat.
最后第3部分我们看到单字 moderation， 这个字是名词，指适度或是适中，像是 High-fat foods such as ice cream should be eaten in moderation. 冰淇淋之类的高脂食物应该要节制食用。或是 Soft drinks aren't harmful to your health so long as they are consumed in moderation. 软性饮料只要适量摄取是不会对健康有害的。另外补充这个字的形容词 moderate, M-O-D-E-R-A-T-E, moderate 指适度的或是中等的。例如 The politician's moderate views made him appealing to many voters. 那名政治人物的温和观点让他吸引了许多选民。
So now we know which are the good fats and where we can find them. Now let's look at the not so good fats, the evil cousins of unsaturated fats. It says here the evil cousins of unsaturated fats are saturated fats and trans fats, both of which should be consumed in moderation or avoided completely. So the bad fats here are saturated and trans fats, and they are referred to as the evil cousins because in many stories, in many situations, you have the good guy and the bad guy. It's sort of a cliche. So if we're referring to unsaturated fats as the good guys, the good ones, then we can refer to the evil cousins because they are related. They're all fats. So the evil cousins are the saturated and the trans fats. And we should either completely avoid these fats or we should consume them in moderation, which means we shouldn't eat too much of them.
Exactly. So yes, indeed, to consume means to eat something. And oftentimes we refer to people who buy things from stores as consumers. In that case, they could be buying anything in addition to food. But here, a consumer, or at least the word consume as a verb, does refer to eating something. So yes, you should consume them in moderation. Eat as few of them as possible. Don't eat very many of those trans fats and those saturated fats. And of course, you reduce the amount of fats that you eat by doing research. And we're going to give you some examples here in just a couple of seconds of foods that you should avoid.
Yes, as a side note, you can use consume for drinks also. So for instance, you shouldn't consume alcohol, any alcohol, before you get into a car and drive. So consume can also be used for drinking. Now, examples of saturated fats and trans fats are beef, pork, and chicken fat, as well as butter, cheese, and cream. These are all high in saturated fat.
So I guess you can eat the beef and the pork and the chicken, but you should avoid the fats from those kinds of meat. Is that correct?
Yes. In general, it's better to avoid the chicken skin, for instance, when you're eating chicken, because that's where all the fat is. And when you're eating beef and pork, you try to stay away from the fat and eat just the lean parts.
Right. The fat in beef, for example, are those little kind of white areas, and those are fats with beef, so you should avoid those. And then some foods contain saturated fats, and those include butter, cheese, and cream. Those are dairy foods, so I guess you have to cut back on those. They're all high in saturated fat, which is bad news for me because I am a cheese lover and I like to have cream in my coffee.
Yeah, it's really a shame because those are all really tasty things. They are the things that are satisfying. You know, when you eat it, you get that immediate reaction of, that's so good. But unfortunately, those things should be avoided or consumed in moderation. So these are the saturated fats, but we also have trans fats. Now, processed and fast foods like hamburgers and pastries also tend to be high in unhealthy fats. These foods are usually high in trans fats, so these should be avoided as well. Processed foods are foods that have chemicals added to them, for instance, as preservatives to keep them fresh, and these foods should also be avoided because they tend to contain saturated fats or trans fats.
Watch out for those fast food hamburgers. Maybe once in a while is okay, but not every day. And my goodness, pastries are so tasty here in Taiwan. It's hard to avoid those. But unfortunately, lots of pastries tend to be high in unhealthy fats. Now, we're wrapping things up here in the final sentence. It says, while our bodies burn unsaturated fats easily, they store saturated and trans fats, turning them into body fat, and that does not sound good.
Right, that's the key right there. The difference between unsaturated and saturated fats and trans fats is that with unsaturated fat, if you eat something that contains unsaturated fat, you can exercise and burn that fat off. But with saturated and trans fats, it's more difficult to burn those fats off because they tend to stay in your body and then they tend to transform into body fat, which is why your clothes might feel tighter after you've been eating a lot of breads and ice creams and stuff like that.
My goodness, you should avoid those kinds of foods. And my understanding is that once you get fat cells in your body, it's almost impossible to get rid of them. So our advice is to not get fat in the first place. If you do get fat, it's going to be very difficult to be skinny once again. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. Let's listen now to our Chinese teacher, Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分有写到，最近许多医生和营养学家明确表示摄取脂肪的健康益处。那么文中它用到动词 proclaim 来表达明确表示。那这个字呢，它也有声明、宣布的意思。我们来学习它的字首字根。首先，同学们应该知道 claim 这个字呢，可以当动词或是当名词来表达宣称、声称。那这个字当字根呢，则是有大叫、呼喊的意思。当我们看到 claim C-L-A-I-M 或者是 C-L-A-M 这一类的字根呢，就带有喊叫、大喊的语义。那么在 proclaim 这个字当中，它的字首 P-R-O 表示向前、在前。那么字根 C-L-A-I-M 表示呼叫。好，那么站在众人前面去大声呼喊啊，大声宣布事情，这样应该可以联想到 proclaim 它有宣布、声明或是宣告主张的意思。我们顺便补充几个有相同字根的单字。第一个是 exclaim E-X-C-L-A-I-M 它的字首 E-X 表示由内向外，那么 claim 表示大叫，把它合在一起 exclaim 就可以表达激动的大声呼喊的那种意思。那这个字就可以去表达出你可能是因为兴奋啊或是痛苦等等而突然喊叫。好，第二个补充的是 acclaim A-C-C-L-A-I-M 它的字首 A-C 是来自 A-D， 这个 A-D 呢只是因为碰到 C 开头的字根，它才转化为 A-C。 好，那么这样的字首它表示朝向，那么字根 claim 表示呼叫。当我们朝向某人去呼喊呼叫，应该很容易去联想到说是为某人欢呼的那种画面。好，那么 acclaim 它就是指欢呼、喝彩或者是称赞。好，那么第三个补充的单字是 reclaim R-E-C-L-A-I-M 它的字首 R-E 表示往回，那么字根 claim 表示叫喊。当有人输掉比赛的时候啊，你可能会去大声落下狠话，说我下次一定要赢回来。那我们也许可以用这样的画面去联想到 reclaim 它有那种夺回、取回、拿回的意思，尤其是指啊你去拿回你先前失去或是被拿走的东西。课文第三部分提到说，加工食品和素食，像是汉堡啊和糕点，也常常含有大量不健康的油脂。那文中是用到 tend to be high in unhealthy fats 来表达常含有大量不健康的油脂。那么 tend to 加上原形动词呢，就可以表达往往会怎么样，经常会怎么样。那它是用来表达经常发生的动作或是习惯。我们顺便补充一下 tend 的其他用法。第一个呢 tend 它有照顾、照管的意思，那么后面是接名词。tend 也可以当不及物用，常常会用 tend to somebody 或者是 tend to something 来表达照顾、照料某人或某事物。举例来说 Mary loves to spend time tending to her garden. Mary 喜欢花时间照顾她的花园。好，那第二个补充的用法是 tend toward 或是 towards 再加上名词来表达倾向于什么，通常是具有某种特质的那种意思。举例来说 Carol tends toward perfectionism. Carol 她有倾向完美主义的特质。好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Proclaim.The professor proclaimed that Mark Rothko was the best abstract painter of the 20th century. Myth. The idea that money can buy happiness is a myth. Tuna. Tuna is one of the most popular kinds of seafood in the world. Salmon. Can you pick up some salmon on the way home from work, please? Boost. The company is looking for someone who can help it boost its sales. Consume.Todd consumes more than 3 pizzas each week.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.